Welcome to A Year of War and Peace. I'm your host, Brian E. Denton. A Year of War and Peace is a daily, year-long, chapter-by-chapter reading of and meditation on Leo Tolstoy's epic novel, War and Peace. In these videos and podcasts, you'll be treated to a free reading of one chapter per day of the novel, plus a reflective essay I've written individually tailored to that day's chapter. These readings are offered for free, though if you'd like to support me, you can do so in one of three ways. First, you could purchase my ebook, A Year of War and Peace. It features the entire novel, plus all of my reflective essays, and it's only $2.99 on Amazon.com. You could also become a patron at patreon.com/BrianEDenton. If you sign up there, you'll receive a sonnet once a month, plus a link to an ebook of my collected sonnets. Finally, if you like, you can make a one-time donation to my PayPal account. The email there is brianedenton@gmail.com. You can also use that email to contact me. I'd be happy to hear from you. Your support is greatly appreciated. Today's reading and reflection is on Chapter 139. Chapter 139. Pelageya Danilovna Melyukova, a broadly built, energetic woman wearing spectacles, sat in the drawing room in a loose dress, surrounded by her daughters, whom she was trying to keep from feeling dull. They were quietly dropping melted wax into snow, and looking at the shadows the wax figures would throw on the wall, when they heard the steps and voices of new arrivals in the vestibule. Hussars, ladies, witches, clowns, and bears, after clearing their throats and wiping the hoarfrost from their faces in the vestibule, came into the ballroom, where candles were hurriedly lighted. The clown, Dimmler, and the lady, Nicholas, started a dance. Surrounded by the screaming children, the mummers, covering their faces and disguising their voices, bowed to their hostess and arranged themselves about the room. Dear me, there's no recognizing them. And Natasha, see who she looks like? She really reminds me of somebody. But Herr Dimmler, isn't he good? I don't know him. And how he dances. Dear me, there's a Circassian. Really, how becoming it is to dear Sonia. And who is that? Why, you have cheered us up. Nikita and Vanya, clear away the tables. And we were sitting so quietly. Ha ha ha. The hussar, just like a boy. And the legs. I can't look at him, different voices were saying. Natasha, everyone's favorite, disappeared with them into the back rooms, where a cork and various dressing gowns and male garments were called for and received from the footman by the bare girlish arms from behind the door. 10 minutes later, all the young Melyukovas joined the murmurs. Pelageya Danilovna, having given orders to clear the rooms for the visitors and arranged about refreshments for the gentry and the serfs, went about among the murmurs without removing her spectacles, peering into their faces with a suppressed smile and failing to recognize any of them. It was not merely Dimmler and the Rostov she failed to recognize. She did not even recognize her own daughters or her late husbands, dressing gowns and uniforms which they had put on. And who is this? She asked her governess, peering into the face of her own daughter dressed up as a Kazan Tatar. I suppose it's one of the Rostovs. Well, Mr. Hussar, and what regiment do you serve? She asked Natasha. Here, hand some fruit jelly to the Turk, she ordered the butler who was handing things round. That's not forbidden by his law. Sometimes, as she looked at the strange but amusing capers cut by the dancers, who, having decided once for all that being disguised no one would recognize them, were not at all shy, Pelageya Danilovna hid her face in her handkerchief, and her whole stout body shook with irrepressible, kindly, elderly laughter. My little Sasha, look at Sasha, she said. After Russian country dances and chorus dances, Pelageya Danilovna made the serfs and gentry join in one large circle. A ring, a string, and silver ruble were fetched, and they all played games together. In an hour, all the costumes were crumpled and disordered. The corked eyebrows and mustaches were smeared all over from the perspiring, flushed, and merry faces. Pelageya Danilovna began to recognize the mummers, admired their cleverly contrived costumes, and particularly how they suited the young ladies, and she thanked them all for having entertained her so well. The visitors were invited to supper in the drawing room, and the serfs had something served to them in the ballroom. Not to tell one's fortune in the empty bathhouse is frightening, said an old maid who lived with the Melyukovas during supper. Why? Said the eldest Melyukova girl. You wouldn't go, it takes courage. I'll go, said Sonia. Tell me what happened to the young lady. said the second Melyukov girl. Well, began the old maid, a young lady once went out, took a cock, laid the table for two, all properly, and sat down. After sitting a while, she suddenly hears something coming. A slave drives up with harness bells. She hears him coming. He comes in, just in the shape of a man, like an officer comes in, and sits down to table with her. Aha! Screamed Natasha, rolling her eyes with horror. Yes, and how did he speak? Yes, like a man. Everything quite all right. And he began persuading her, and she should have kept him talking till the cock crow, but she got frightened. Just got frightened and hid her face in her hands. Then he caught her up. It was lucky the maids ran in just then. Now, why frighten them? Said Pelageya Danilovna. Mamma, you used to try your fate yourself, said her daughter. And how does one do it in a barn? Inquired Sonia. Well, say you went to the barn now and listened. It depends on what you hear. Hammering and knocking, that's bad. But a sound of shifting grain is good, and one sometimes hears that too. Mamma, tell us what happened to you in the barn. Pelageya Danilovna smiled. Oh, I've forgotten, she replied. But none of you would go? Yes, I will. Let me go. I'll go, said Natasha. Well, why not, if you're not afraid? Louisa Ivanova, may I? Asked Sonia. Whether they were playing the ring and string game, or the ruble game, or talking as now, Nicholas did not leave Sonia's side, and gazed at her with quite new eyes. It seemed to him that it was only today, thanks to that burnt cork mustache, that he had fully learned to know her. And really, that evening, Sonia was brighter, more animated, and prettier than Nicholas had ever seen her before. So that's what she's like. What a fool have I been, he thought, gazing at her sparkling eyes. And under the mustache, a happy, rapturous smile dimpled her cheeks, a smile he had never seen before. I'm not afraid of anything, said Sonia. May I go at once? She got up. They told her where the barn was, and how she should stand and listen, and they handed her a fur cloak. She threw this over her head and shoulders and glanced at Nicholas. What a darling that girl is, thought he. And what have I been thinking of till now? Sonia went out into the passage to go to the barn. Nicholas went hastily to the front porch, saying he felt too hot. The crowd of people really had made the house stuffy. Outside, there was the same cold stillness and the same moon, but even brighter than before. The light was so strong, and the snow sparkled with so many stars that one did not wish to look up at the sky and the real stars went unnoticed. The sky was black and dreary, while the earth was gay. I am a fool, a fool. What have I been waiting for? Thought Nicholas. And running out from the porch, he went round the corner of the house and along the path that led to the back porch. He knew Sonia would pass that way. Halfway lay some snow-covered piles of firewood, and across and along them a network of shadows from the bare old lime trees that fell on the snow and on the path. This path led to the barn. The log walls of the barn and its snow-covered roof, that looked as if hewn out of some precious stone, sparkled in the moonlight. A tree in the garden snapped with the frost, and then all was again perfectly silent. His breast seemed to inhale not air, but the strength of eternal youth and gladness. From the back porch came the sound of feet descending the steps. The bottom step, upon which snow had fallen, gave a ringing creak, and he heard the voice of an old maidservant saying, Straight, straight, along the path, miss. Only don't look back. I'm not afraid, answered Sonia's voice, and along the path toward Nicholas came the crunching, whistling sound of Sonia's feet in her thin shoes. Sonia came along, wrapped in her cloak. She was only a couple of paces away when she saw him, and to her, too, he was not the Nicholas she had known and always slightly feared. He was in a woman's dress, with tousled hair, and a happy smile new to Sonia. She ran rapidly towards him. Quite different and yet the same, thought Nicholas, looking at her face all lit up by the moonlight. He slipped his arms under the cloak that covered her head, embraced her, pressed her to him, and kissed her on the lips that wore a mustache and had a smell of burnt cork. Sonia kissed him full on the lips, and disengaging her little hands, pressed them to his cheeks. Sonia, Nicholas, was all they said. They ran to the barn and then back again, re-entering, he by the front and she by the back porch. All right, that concludes my reading of chapter 139. I hope you liked it. I'll now proceed to my reflection on the same. A Year of War and Peace, Day 139. Moonglow. Yesterday, we considered the transition from childhood to adulthood. Today, we consider one of the most important and consequential decisions of adulthood, who we marry. We've been aware of Nicholas and Sonia's relationship since the beginning of the novel. We've watched it progress all the way from a case of kissing cousins to a confused and uncertain half-engagement. In today's chapter, the heat is turned back up in the relationship, and really, who can blame them? The setting is perfect for a rekindling of passion. A fresh winter snow has fallen. A bright moon shines down upon them like the world's most romantic candlelight. And the secret ingredient to any amorous assignation, the two lovers are dressed in drag. It appears Nicholas and Sonia's engagement is back on in earnest. While it's always nice to see two young people in love, there are certain complications in this particular relationship. First of all, they're cousins. Secondly, Nicholas' parents, as we learned recently, are firmly against this pairing. This chapter, therefore, presents us with another opportunity to think about our duties and roles in life. This question of duty and role-playing is, after all, one of the most important questions we encounter in life. Sometimes these roles, as they are today, come into conflict. On the one hand, Nicholas and Sonia have a duty to be true to themselves. On the other hand, they also have familial duties that, in this case at least, preclude them from being true to themselves. What do you think? Should Nicholas and Sonia follow their hearts or the wishes of their family? What is the right thing to do here? Daily meditation. It is in the observance of duty that lies all the honor of life, in its neglect, all the shame. All right, so that concludes my reading and reflection on chapter 139. I hope you liked it. Remember that if you'd like to support me, you can do so either by purchasing the ebook, A Year of War and Peace, becoming a patron at patreon.com, or making a one-time donation at PayPal. The links to all that are below in the show notes. Tomorrow, we're going to be reading and reflecting on chapter 140. I hope you'll join me. Until then, take care of yourselves and others.